It is time to go live, and we are live, ladies and gentlemen. We're a minute or two late here because I'm tearing around on this December 3rd, 2023. December 3rd, 2023, I spent the day working on Bellows Falls Opera House stuff, and then I had forgotten all about the fact that this is Benchley night. And so I just remembered at like 6:45 and got cracking, and here we are. Now, is anyone out there? It doesn't say that anybody's watching, so that's fine. That's fine. Be that way. What am I talking about? I am talking about the fact that today is December 3rd. That is the birthday of my mother, Edith Hunter. Edith Hunter was a remarkable woman. She was very funny and kind of mean at times, but very funny. And what was it, 104 years ago, she was brought forth into this world. Now, she was never as big a fan of Robert Benchley as my father was. Let's see, I'm going to see if anybody is, any comments from anybody? No comments from anybody. I wonder if I've done something wrong and I'm not actually broadcasting. We'll see. Anyway, she was not as big a fan of Robert Benchley as my dad was, but she did like this one okay. She did like this one okay. And one thing I wanted to tell you about, part of what has been keeping me busy the last day or two is that I remember as a small child, my mother inadvertently causing the maple syrup to boil over on the stove out in the shed, and it was a remarkable experience because sticky maple syrup got everywhere. Well, the other day, I was making I had a gallon of maple syrup and it had gotten a little moldy, and all you have to do if you've got mold on your maple syrup is you boil it and then you skim off the mold, the scudge on top. Well, I forgot about it, and I ended up with maple syrup everywhere in the kitchen, and I was very, very careful to clean up all of the maple syrup that I possibly could. But apparently not careful enough, because today, out there, the ants are hard at work. They're like, guys, time for a party. And they are having a party. But it is, I'm gonna see if I show up online here, just to make sure that if no one is watching, yeah, there I am. Yeah, people can see me for some reason. I can't see people. Anyway, so yeah, the ants are having a wonderful time out there. Fortunately, the woman who does the house cleaning is coming on Tuesday, and she's probably going to be far more thorough than I was. But it was a nice reminder of my mother, because I laughed at her when I was a child. I was a horrid child. I laughed at her when the maple syrup boiled over in the shed. And then today a couple of days ago, I got my comeuppance. I choose to believe that is the hand of Edith Hunter from the beyond. Anyway, welcome to Benchley Night. It is time for a Christmas. So no, I gotta thank people. My word. It is we've been doing this fundraiser for the Miss Bellows Falls Diner in the name of all the people who worked on the railroad in Bellows Falls, and the Boston and Maine Railroad, and the Rutland Railroad, and the Central Vermont Railroad, and the New England Central Railroad. But one of the best known in our town, was a fellow named Curtis Sparky Caswell. And Sparky had mental challenges, but he was the caretaker of the station for Amtrak from 1972 until about 2000. And so we have decided that on this little fundraiser, we are going to name counter space in the renovated Miss Bellows Falls Diner after Curtis Sparky Caswell. And we set a goal of $1,500, and I think we're within $100 now. We're within $100, ladies and gentlemen. That's close enough in anybody's ball game. Thank you all so much for contributing to this. We have some people to thank, and the unidentified unglet is ready. First off, Ms. Jamie Barth, Mr. Stuart Adam, Ms. Lorianne D'Antonio, Mr. J.T. Mayer, the peripatetic Terry Hudson, my brother, Will Hunter, Mr. Jim Frisk, a good man, a real fan, just an all-around good guy. He comes down from St. Albans occasionally. We get coffee. Thank you, Jim Frisk. And Miss Tony Hewlett. And then out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where his mom who is still with us, Miss Dorothea Ronk Hunter, she sends out every year Royal Riviera pears, ladies and gentlemen. Royal Riviera pears from Harry and David. My Royal Riviera pears arrived the last day that Betty Sue was here. She took a few with her. I still have a few. They're as delicious as ever. It is one of the great joys of my life, that annual receipt of Royal Riviera pears. And if you have never had a Royal Riviera pear, ladies and gentlemen, you have missed out. They are delicious. They are creamy. They are sweet. Oh, I love those Royal Rivieras. I thank my great aunt, Miss Dorothea Ronk Hunter, and Miss Betty Sue thanks her. Miss Betty Sue is down in Austin, Texas. Perhaps she's watching, perhaps she's sleeping, because she finally got off the road. She was on tour, then she was here. Then she left again and played Eugene, Oregon, and San Francisco, and then Austin last night, and then woke up today with a terrible sore throat. Testing negative for the Rona, but she's down for the count, ladies and gentlemen. So send healing thoughts to Ms. Betty Sue. But lastly, out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, looking after Ms. Dorothea Ronk Hunter and the rest of the Hunter familia out in Pittsburgh. My very, 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 very tall cousin, Mr. Nat Hunter, his wonderful wife, Elise, and their little tiny dog, Ginger. Thank you all so much. So, tonight's reading, A Christmas Spectacle by Robert Benchley. This is one of my favorites. As a minister's son, I could relate. For use in the Christmas Eve entertainments in the vestry. At the opening of the entertainment, the superintendent will step into the footlights, recover his balance apologetically, and say, "Boys and girls of the intermediate department, parents and friends, I suppose you all know why we are here tonight." At this point, the audience will titter apprehensively. Mrs. Drury and her class of little girls have been working very hard to make this entertainment a success. And I am sure that everyone here tonight is going to have what I overheard one of my boys the other day calling some good time. Indulgent laughter from the little boys. And may I add, before the curtain goes up, that immediately after the entertainment, we want you all to file out into the Christian Endeavor room, where there'll be a Christmas tree with all the fixins, as the boys say, shrill whistling from the little boys, and immoderate applause from everyone. There will then be a wait of 25 minutes while sounds of hammering and dropping may be heard from behind the curtains. The Boys Club Orchestra will render the Poet and Peasants Overture 4 times in succession, each time differently. At last, one side of the at last, one side of the curtains will be drawn back. The other will catch on something and have to be released by hand. Someone will whisper loudly, "Put out the lights," following which the entire house will be plunged into darkness. Amidst catcalls from the little boys, the footlights will at last go on, disclosing the windows in the rear of the vestry, rather ineffectively concealed by a group of small fir trees on standards, one of which has already fallen over, leaving exposed a corner of the map of Palestine and the list of gold star classes for November. In the center of the stage is a larger tree, undecorated, well, at the extreme left, invisible to everyone in the audience. Invisible to everyone in the audience except those sitting at the extreme right is an imitation fireplace leaning against the wall. 25 seconds too early, little Flora Rochester will prance out from the wings, uttering the first shrill notes of a song, and will have to be grabbed by eager hands and pulled back. 24 seconds later, the piano will begin "The Return of the Reindeer" with a powerful accent on the first note of each bar. And Flora Rochester, Lillian McNulty, Gertrude Hamingham, and Martha Wrist will swirl on, dressed in white, and advance heavily into the footlights, which will then go out. There will then be an interlude while Mr. Neff, the sexton, adjusts the connection, during which the four little girls stand undecided whether to brave it out or to cry. As a compromise, they giggle and are herded back into the wings by Mrs. Drury amidst applause. When the lights go on again, the applause becomes deafening, and as Mr. Neff walks triumphantly away, the little boys in the audience will whistle, "There she goes, there she goes," all dressed up in her Sunday clothes. The Return of the Reindeer will be started again, and the showgirls will reappear, this time this time somewhat more gingerly and dispirited. They will, however, sing the following to the music of the Ballet Pizzicato from Sylvia. We greet you on this Christmas Eve so fine. We greet you, and wish you a good time." They will then turn toward the tree, and Flora Rochester will advance, hanging a silver star on one of the branches, meanwhile reciting a verse, the only distinguishable words of which are, "I am faith so strong and pure." At the conclusion of her recitation, the star will fall off. Lillian McNulty will then step forward and hang her star on a branch, reading her lines in clear tones. "And I am hope, a virtue great, my gift to Christmas now I make, that children and grown-ups may hope today that tomorrow will be a merry Christmas day." The hanging of the third star will be consummated by Gertrude Hamingham, who will get as far as, "Sweet charity I bring to place upon the tree," at which point the strain will become too great and she will forget the remainder. After several frantic glances toward the wings, from which Mrs. Drury is sending out whispered messages to the effect that the next line begins, "My message bright," Gertrude will disappear, crying softly. After the morale of the cast has been in some measure restored by the pianist, who, with great presence of mind, plays a few bars of Will There Be Any Stars in My Crown to cover up Gertrude's exit, Martha Wrist will unleash a rope of silver tinsel from the foot of the tree, and stringing it over the boughs as she skips around in a circle, will say with great assurance, "Round and round the tree I go, through the holly and the snow, bringing love and Christmas cheer through the happy year to come." At this point, there will be a great commotion and jangling of sleigh bells off stage, and Mr. Creamer, rather poorly disguised as Santa Claus, will emerge from the opening in the imitation fireplace. A great popular demonstration from Mr. Creamer will follow. He will then advance to the footlights and, rubbing his pillow and ducking his knees to denote joviality, will say thickly through the false beard, "Well, well, well, what do we have here? A lot of bad little boys and girls who aren't going to get any Christmas presents this year?" Nervous laughter from the little boys and girls. Let me see. I have a note here from Dr. Whidden. Let's see what it says. Reads from a paper on which there's obviously nothing written. "If you and the young people of the intermediate department will come into the Christian Endeavor room, I think we may have a little surprise for you." Well, 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 what do you suppose it can be? Cries of, I know, from sophisticated ones in the audience. Maybe it's a bottle of castor oil. Raucous jeers from the little boys and elaborately simulated disgust on the part of the little girls. Well, anyway, suppose we go out and see. Now, if Miss Liftnagel will oblige us with a little march on the piano, we will all form in a single file. At this point, there will ensue a stampede toward the Christian Endeavor room, in which chairs will be broken, decorations demolished, and the protesting Mr. Creamer badly hurt. This will bring to a close the first part of the evening's entertainment. Oh, I love that story, ladies and gentlemen. I love that story. It's 8:04 p.m. I think we should have one last Benchley tonight. Why not? If you need to go somewhere, go do it. But if you want to stick around, we're going to have the Benchley Whittier correspondence. I've read this one before. Old scandals concerning the private life of Lord Byron have been revived with the recent publication of a collection of his letters. One of the big questions seems to be, did Byron send Mary Shelley's letter to Mrs. R.B. Hopner? Everyone seems greatly excited about this. Lest future generations be thrown into turmoil over my correspondence after I am gone, I want right now to clear up the mystery which has puzzled literary circles for over 30 years. I need hardly add that I refer to what is known as the Benchley-Whittier correspondence. The big question over which both my biographers and Whittier's might possibly come to blows is this, as I understand it. Did John Greenleaf Whittier ever receive the letters I wrote to him in the late fall of 1890? If he did not, who did? Under what circumstances were they written? I was a very young man at that time, and Mr. Whittier was naturally very old. There had been a meeting of the Save Our Songbirds Club in Old Dane Hall, now demolished, in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Members had left their coats and hats in the check room at the foot of the stairs, now demolished. In passing out after a rather spirited meeting, during the course of which Mr. Whittier and Dr. Van Blarcom had opposed each other rather violently over the question of Baltimore Orioles. The aged poet naturally was the first to be helped into his coat. In the general mix-up, there was considerable good-natured fooling amongst the members as they left, relieved as they were from the strain of the meeting. Whittier was given my hat by mistake. When I came to go, there was nothing left for me but a rather seedy gray derby with a black band containing the initials J.G.W. As the poet was visiting in Cambridge at the time, I took the opportunity next day to write the following letter to him. Cambridge, Massachusetts, November 7th, 1890. Dear Mr. Whittier, I am afraid that in the confusion following the Save Our Songbirds meeting last night, you were given my hat by mistake. I have yours, and I will gladly exchange it if you will let me know when I may call on you. May I not add that I am a great admirer of your verse? Have you ever tried any musical comedy lyrics? I think I could get you in on the ground floor of the show game, as I know a young man who's written several songs, which Mr. E. Rice has said he would like to use in his next comic opera, provided he can get words to go with them. But we can discuss all this at our meeting, which I hope will be soon, as your hat looks like hell on me. Yours respectfully, Robert C. Benchley. I am quite sure that this letter was mailed, as I find an entry in my diary on that date, which reads, mailed a letter to J.G. Whittier, cloudy and cooler. Furthermore, in a deathbed confession, some 10 years later, one Mary F. Rourke, a servant employed in the house of Dr. Agassiz, with whom Whittier was bunking at the time, admitted that she herself had taken a letter bearing my name in the corner of the envelope to the poet at his breakfast on the following morning. But whatever became of it after it fell into his hands, I received no reply. I waited 5 days, during which time I stayed in the house rather than go out wearing that Whittier gray derby. On the 6th day, I wrote him again as follows. Cambridge, Massachusetts, November 14th, 1890. Dear Mr. Whittier, how about that hat of mine? Yours respectfully, Robert C. Benchley. I received no answer to that letter either. Concluding that the good gray poet was either too busy or too gosh darn mean to bother with the thing, I myself adopted an attitude of supercilious unconcern, and I closed the correspondence with the following terse message. Cambridge, Massachusetts, December 4th, 1890. Dear Mr. Whittier, it's my earnest wish that that hat of mine, which you are keeping, will slip down over your eyes someday, interfering with your vision to such an extent that you will walk off the sidewalk into the gutter and receive painful, albeit superficial, injuries. Your young friend, Robert C. Benchley. Here the matter ended so far as I was concerned, and I trust that the biographers in the future will not let any confusion of motives or misunderstanding of dates enter into a clear and unbiased statement of the whole affair. We must not have another Shelley Byron scandal. All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right, that does it for Benchley Night tonight. We'll be back next week with some more great Robert Benchley holiday readings. Holiday readings from the great ones. You take care out there, and we'll see you next week.